line. And John, good morning.
Thanks, guys. You do what you got to do for truth and justice.
Amen. And it is appreciated. Let's start with, and then we'll end there too, but talk a little about the event coming up here Saturday. It'll be the 2-year anniversary of the firing, many of us believe the unjust firing of Joe Paterno, and you and Franco and a few others will be on hand to discuss all that we have learned, and it's quite a bit we've learned over these last couple of years. But tell us a little bit about the event coming up at the Days Inn.
Yeah, I'm going to be heading from Los Angeles to State College on Saturday, and hopefully if there's no major flight problems, I'll be joining Franco Harris and Ray Blehar and Eileen Morgan and several others, including Anthony Lebrano, at the Days Inn in State College. The event, I believe we're going to open the doors around 7:30, probably get started a little bit after that. I believe there'll be some refreshments and some other stuff there, and most importantly, you're going to hear the real story of what actually happened in the Jerry Sandusky scandal, and you're also you're going to learn, as you implied, everything that we have all learned, except the media has ignored, in the 2 years since that fateful day of November 9th, 2011. And we're going to do it all this Saturday, as I said, at the Days Inn in State College. The doors open at 7:30. We're hoping for a good crowd. We're hoping for a diverse crowd. Bring a friend, and we also love to get some students there if we could possibly do so, although the student culture there at Penn State really dramatically changed, in my opinion, for the worse, actually, when the so-called riot, which was not really a riot, was, in my opinion, misperceived by the news media, which created it to begin with. And I think the students have really missed the boat on what really happened here. So if any student happens to be listening and wants to really find out what actually did occur, the only place you're going to find it is Saturday night at the Days Inn on the anniversary of Joe Paterno's firing. And by the way, the whole thing is free, so you can't beat that, and you get to meet Franco Harris. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to be providing a different presentation than I ever have at one of these events previously. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
And John, I've been encouraging people that do believe there was a conspiracy, and by God, the Board of Trustees knows what they're doing. You loudmouths on the radio need to give them a break. I would love for those people to come out, listen to the presentations, and then ask some questions. Present your side, and go ahead and refute the facts as they are. I really would. I would like to get people with the opposing viewpoints here to come out and attend and express why they have the viewpoints they do. I really would like that.
Jeff, that's a great point. I'm glad you raised it. It's 100% accurate. We do not fear disagreement. In fact, we embrace it. We would like to educate people as to what's really occurred here, what the facts truly are. And I think that, to me, one of the most frustrating, and there have been many frustrating things over the last 2 years, but one of the most frustrating things is that nobody will engage on the other side of this. I mean nobody.
Yep.
And in the national news media, I can't tell you how many times I have offered money to charity. Big money, some $10,000 usually is my normal amount that I will offer to charity, because it's all about the victims. Remember, to simply debate these issues, and no one will do it. Even the most loudmouthed, arrogant people on the other side in the media will not do it. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because frankly, if they were as confident as I am in my argument and in the facts and the evidence in this case, I think they would be chomping at the bit to engage. So if you're on the fence, if you're somebody who is completely convinced to the other side, we'll be 100% respectful. We hope you'll turn out, ask questions, and maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll change your mind. Maybe you won't. But Joe Paterno, just before he died, said that he wanted the truth to be known here, and the truth has not been known, especially in the news media. I happen to believe very, very few people have spoken about the real truth of this case publicly. I intend to do that on Saturday night.
And one of the other things I would encourage, I know Anthony LeBron will be there, but I really would love to have several of the board members who were there the night that Joe Paterno was fired and were part of that process to come and even if they don't speak, at least listen. And I would just have an immeasurable amount of more respect for them if they would at least engage. Or at least be open to listening to what the alumni and folks like yourself and Franco are saying and factually presenting about the case. I still think that is still my great frustration, is that there has been no open dialogue.
Isn't it amazing that they have not been transparent? And some of these guys, a lot of them, even after the event, were still quote-unquote Paterno supporters. And it's really remarkable the amount of cowardice, and that's the only word that I can use to describe this whole thing. I've never seen more cowardice in my life than what has pervaded this particular story. But of course, the remaining board members are doing such a bang-up job finding a new president that they probably don't have time to participate in such an event as to actually learn why it is that the biggest decision the board ever made in its history was flat out wrong. And by the way, it wasn't just one decision of firing Joe Paterno and essentially firing Graham Spanier that was wrong. I believe that the Board of Trustees has exacerbated that decision many times over now, and actually made it far worse than it originally was, all trying to rationalize that original decision. And I think that these settlements, which we continue to hear about, are maybe the most outrageous element of this whole thing, because they are flat out wrong. They are not based in fact. They are not based in evidence. They have been implemented in a way that is think about this, folks, purposely intended to take blame for crimes Penn State did not commit and to prevent the former administrators, Spanier, Curley, and Schultz, from being able to get a fair trial. That is outrageous. And, it's rather ironic, Jeff, I don't know if you caught this, but bizarrely, they're fighting one case, the Victim 6 case. And yesterday, apparently, Penn State actually won a court victory against Victim 6. Now, what's bizarre about this is Victim 6 is the only victim who testified at trial who has any real connection to Penn State.
Yeah.
And yet Penn State is fighting that and winning in court. And I actually think if anybody looks at the Victim 6 case, they realize what a fraud the entire case is, because Victim 6 didn't even allege any sort of sexual abuse and had a 13-year relationship with Jerry Sandusky without incident, with the approval of his mother, who really drove this whole thing, for like I said, 13 years after this non-event that the authorities looked into and decided was not criminal. And Penn State is fighting that case and winning, but that's the only one that Penn State, there's a victim that testified at trial that Penn State knew anything about. I mean, everything about this case is upside down. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable is a good word.
No, you can't make this stuff up.
No, you really can't. I mean, in all seriousness, just think about it. People probably think we're not even telling the truth because it's so bizarre. But even I don't understand how the Victim 6 thing is working. And I'm hoping that goes to trial, because people, by the way, the other element of Victim 6 people need to understand about this is that this is the mother of Victim 6, who's Sarah Gannon, contacted in the middle of the grand jury investigation, urging her to find more victims and offering to put her in touch with an investigating agent. And this is the woman who won the Pulitzer Prize. I contacted every single member of that Pulitzer committee by email and individually told them and proved to them that she did this. She had to stipulate to this during the Sandusky trial and said, were you aware of this when you gave her the Pulitzer Prize? Not one of them even returned an email. I mean, this whole thing is just insane making.
It truly is. John, you mentioned the presentation is going to be different than what you've presented before, and again, we continue to learn more information about various aspects of the case, and we're still waiting, obviously, for the Curly, Schultz, and Spanier trials to take place, which hopefully may shed some additional light on what all transpired here and how everything went down. Can you give us, I obviously don't want you to give away your presentation here Saturday night. We want folks to turn out. But can you give us an idea of the role that you're going to take here on Saturday?
Well, my role has always been about the media. Most of your listeners are probably aware I did the mini movie, the Framing of Joe Paterno. By the way, we have a new edited version of that that people can check out at framingpaterno.com. And I also wrote a free book. All of it's free. No, not even any advertising. I wrote a book called The Betrayal of Joe Paterno, which people can get for themselves in various formats at framingpaterno.com. Jeff, I'm going to talk about how this all began and how this became a Penn State story. I'm going to show video clips of the media coverage at the time. I'm also going to talk about what it is we know now in comparison to what we thought we knew 2 years ago when this whole thing broke. And as you know, Jeff, because you and I have talked on and off the air about this, my view of this case has changed rather dramatically since I started on this thing. At first, especially after the Free Report, I thought I was arguing mostly for reasonable doubt or due process, or hey, you didn't prove the case, or hey, this is a rush to judgment, this is not fair. And now I am positive that Joe Paterno was railroaded. I am positive that especially Graham Spanier is innocent. I am almost positive that Tim Curley and Gary Schultz are also innocent, and that there was no cover-up. And I'm also now convinced that because of everything else I have learned in my extensive interaction with Jerry Sandusky, Dottie Sandusky, other members of the Sandusky family and friends of theirs, and learning more and more about what really transpired here, I think that the case against Jerry Sandusky has been very misunderstood, and that's really what's driven this entire thing. People really need to understand. Now, of course, this gets into a very sticky area, because, are you defending a pedophile? Are you criticizing victims? No. I'm just talking about what actually did and did not happen and how that fits into the larger picture here. And when people really understand the facts of this, they will understand that this whole thing, that the mountain on which this was built, is not nearly as big, and the foundation is not nearly as strong as people have been led to believe. And that's, to me, that's the biggest mistake that the pro-Paterno side has made, is in allowing the caricature of Jerry Sandusky as this hideous, horrendous monster who was going around raping boys at the 50-yard line at Beater Stadium on Saturday afternoons to be crystallized and accepted by everybody, because that's not what happened. And I am positive that nothing close to that is reality. But unfortunately, that was accepted, and because of that, Joe Paterno was doomed for all time, because people can't separate in their minds the difference between Jerry Sandusky and Joe Paterno. Piers Morgan and Matt Lauer couldn't do it when I was on their TV shows. So, how can the average person do it? So that's the theme of what I'm going to be talking about Saturday night, and I hope people will join us at the Days In there and meet Franco Harris and the rest of us.
Have to take our only break, catch up on the AccuWeather forecast. We'll have more with John Ziegler right after this here on News Radio 103 WRSC. And John Ziegler joins us via telephone and will actually be in our area.
Yes,
for much longer.
Upon Further Review is the title of the event that will be held Saturday night, 7:30 at the Days Inn in downtown State College. And John will be joined by Ray Blehar, Eileen Morgan, Franco Harris, of course, putting it together. Anthony Lebrano from the board will be there, and we would love to see you there as well. Again, it'll be this Saturday evening, 7:30, long after the Penn State-Minnesota game. You can head on down to the Days Inn in State College, and learn a little more about what has occurred and what did occur 2 years ago to the day from Saturday with the firing of Joe Paterno. And John, I don't know if you had a chance to watch 60 Minutes on Sunday night, but I was watching the piece on Nick Saban in Alabama. And have you, because I've been doing some digging around, and I don't have a number yet as to the number of kids that have been sexually abused in Alabama, but obviously with a football culture like that, we know that when you have a football culture like that, it leads to child abuse, and I have not been able to find the numbers yet. Have you seen the numbers yet as to how many kids are being raped on that Alabama campus? Because the fans there, they love their football.
Well, I haven't had a chance to get into those numbers, but it's an interesting question. Of course, I guess you've also connected the fact that the reporter on that deification of Nick Saban's story and the Alabama football culture, ironically enough, was Armin Katayan.
Mm-hmm.
And Armin Katayan, of course, is the person who has done some really horrendous reporting on the Penn State story, in fact, trying desperately to spike his own scoop when he interviewed Frank Fina, the Sandusky prosecutor, who told Armin Katayan on 60 Minutes, much to his horror, that Joe Paterno was not involved in a cover-up and that there was no evidence that he was involved in a cover-up, and Katayan almost lost his lunch and argued with him, and then CBS decided that really wasn't much of a news scoop at all, and that they decided to spike their own story. And yet here Armin Katayan is engaging in the deification of Nick Saban and Alabama football, which I thought was more than ironic, but typical of Armin. I've had some Twitter battles with Armin Katayan, and it's incredible how many inaccuracies he has reported. Just when the settlements occurred again, when Penn State put out a press release taking credit for more settlements that hadn't even really occurred, Katayan made a basic math error in his report on the CBS Evening News, telling Scott Pelley, the CBS Evening News anchor, a number of victims that was just not possible. That was based upon the trial testimony. He did not know how many of these victims had actually testified. And you would think somebody who supposedly has been in-depth reporting on this would know that, but that's just one of many mistakes that Armin Katayan has made, and it's typical of the way the media has covered this story from day one.
Well, John, one of the things we talked about a good bit on our program here in regards to the reporting, and in fairness to the reporters, I mean, Penn State was putting out the exact same information in their releases. It was, hey, we have paid 20, whatever it was, some victims of Jerry Sandusky, and that isn't what they did. They paid some victims and a lot of alleged victims. And there was a time when the alleged victims, I mean, that was an important part of news reporters and their duties, was distinguishing between folks that were convicted of crimes and thus were criminals and those who were alleged. And there is no distinguishment in this case.
Anybody's a victim of Jerry Sandusky. I mean, if you're a victim, you're a victim. You don't have to give your name. You don't have to answer any questions. You'll probably get a check from Penn State, and you get called a victim even if you, and by the way, people think we're criticizing victims. Let's do the math on this. So if you did not testify at trial, that means a couple of things. One, you didn't either hear about, which was difficult to understand if you lived in the area, the Sarah Gannon article of March 2011, which was well before his arrest, right? So to me, people who didn't come forward before the arrest are automatically of dubious credibility. But then if you didn't come forward until after the arrest and after Penn State made it very clear they were going to pay anybody who was a victim, and you weren't credible enough for the prosecution to put you on the stand when they were still desperate for credible victims, especially those who claim sex and especially those who connected the case to Penn State, I'm sorry. There's a reason why we are suspicious that you're anonymously getting paid a lot of money here. And the other thing, by the way, is because of the McQueary allegation, everybody thinks that if you are a Sandusky victim, then that means you got raped anally in a shower. That's not true. That's not close to true. That's not what the vast majority of these victims alleged and otherwise are claiming, but the newspapers never make that distinction. I got in an argument with a CDT reporter recently because they don't tell you what the victim number 6, the 1998 victim, is alleging, because there's nothing close to sexual there, nothing close. And I said to the person, why don't you point that out? And that writer actually told me, well, because our readers at Ground Zero already know all the facts of the case, and we don't need to keep dredging it up. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, it just never ends, Jeff.
That is incredible. Yeah. I'll have to do a little digging of my own on that, because that is truly incredible.
I was shocked. I mean, I was completely stunned. But I thought I lost the ability to be stunned in all this. But you ever notice whenever victim 6 is referred to, they never tell you what the allegation was. By the way, same thing with Matt Sandusky. I guarantee you, everybody thinks Matt Sandusky claims that he was, again, I hate using these terms, but you got to be specific that he was anally raped or there was oral sex. No, Matt Sandusky's allegation is that as an 8-year-old, found through repressed memory, he was kissed on the stomach and maybe had his penis grazed by Jerry Sandusky. And this was found many years later in the middle of a trial so that he could get a lot of money. But everybody thinks, because it's not stated when you're referred to as a Sandusky victim, that this means that you had horrendous, horrific, unthinkable things happen to you. Not true. Just not true.
No, and it is, as you say, it's just a source of great frustration that facts just no longer seem to matter. I mean, it's just not even relevant to the folks that are reporting on the story. I mean, it's one thing for some football fan in California to not be concerned with getting bogged out in the facts, but a reporter on the case, we just trust that people will instinctively know the facts of the case, and we'll just let it go with that. That's just incredible.
I got to tell you, I don't know how I have kept any portion of my sanity over the last 2 years battling these morons. I mean, but that's what I do on a daily basis, because, and I have started to get tired with it. It's because there's just no winning. You're banging your head up against a brick wall because they don't even know enough to know what they don't know, Jeff. I mean,
I know. John, we're flat out of time. As always, we appreciate it. Look forward to catching up with you. I'll be up there Saturday night, and again, 7:30 at the Days Inn upon further review. John, thank you.
Thank you, guys.